Well, good morning, everybody. This is Linda Bloom in Santa Cruz, and I want to make sure that you can hear me. Can I have an indication that I am being broadcast at this moment? Yes, good. All right. Well, I am a psychotherapist, and I live in Santa Cruz, California. And I live by the sea. And I have been a psychotherapist and seminar leader for many years, going all the way back to 1974. I am privileged to be married to a psychotherapist and seminar leader also, and his name is Charlie Bloom. We're happy to announce that we are going to have our 50th wedding anniversary in just a few months. And I count all the years that we've been together. We've been together for 54 years. Now, that's a lot of working it out. We consider ourselves a very happy couple, and we have made it our life's work for many years to find out what characterizes the happy couples from the couples that have an okay relationship. Doing psychotherapy with couples has been challenging in some ways because you're interfacing with people who are frustrated and they have trouble getting their needs met, and they're unhappy, sometimes angry and bitter. And we did couples counseling for such a long time that it got to the point where it was feeling heavy and difficult. So we made up our minds that we were going to have an antidote to the darkness, and we were going to interview the happiest couples we could find and have them tell us their secrets of success. So we wrote a book about that called Secrets of Great Marriages. So a lot of copies, I'm happy to report. And the couples told their secrets of success in their own way. They were a very creative bunch. What we were able to see from the 27 stories that we included in our book, that they had cultivated over time habits that gave rise to this very fulfilling partnership that they had created. So we're working on a new book now that we're calling Habits of Happy Couples, and we're illustrating the points that we learned from those couples, others that we've interviewed. We've interviewed many, many happy couples. We consider ourselves among that group. And we found that the definition of habit says that it's patterns that persist, and they're usually hard to break. So we learned these, a lot of them, from our family of origin. No blame on our family of origin. If they had learned better habits, they would have shown and modeled better habits for us, but they had a learning deficit too. And we tend to repeat some of the same habits that we learned from our families until we become more conscious. And when we are aware of the unskillful choices that we're making for our habituated patterns, and we have contemplated what would be a more skillful pattern, that choice point is incredibly important for us to mend our difficult ways that invite our partner to be closer to us, to be bonded to us, to be in league with us, to both of us have our dreams fulfilled, our goals manifested, our longing to fulfill our vision of creating happy families. If we choose to have children, to give them good habits, which we may not have learned from our own families. To really go for the gold is what we speak about it as with our workshops. When we talk to people and we're speaking in our classes, we say, let your imagination be big. Don't lower your expectations and try to fit what you're given. If you want to choose a goal orientation and a growth orientation. Reach high. Let your imagination have all of the characteristics that you would like to have. There's no perfection, but there is excellence. One of the first things that we find when we identify the habits of happy couples is they've got ambition for their relationship. They've got a vision of it could be greater than it is already. And how will we be in league with each other to manifest that? How will we bring out the best in each other? Now, that's a good deal. If you make a contract with your partner that you want to use everything that the relationship tosses up as a growth opportunity, that's a mighty agreement. And what we find is when the couples make that agreement, they start to be aware of the habits that are getting in their way. Maybe it's interrupting. Maybe it's being impatient. Maybe it's not asking for what they need. Maybe it's not knowing what they need. Maybe it's settling rather than going for the gold. So we find that this is one of the habits. They've got a good work ethic and a lofty vision, and they're willing to put the time and the effort towards making the relationship great. One of the things that we find is that it's the depth of the intimacy that they share with each other. Emotional intimacy is defined as in to me see. Innermost. I choose you to be one of the privileged few that I will show my innermost self to. I'm going to zip up my image suit and I'm going to present myself to people in the rest of the world in a different way, but I'm going to let you know my innermost self. So when we feel the impulse, the old habituated pattern to conceal, that choice point to use the new habit of revealing more, sharing our feelings, sharing our lofty dreams, sharing our deepest, tender, vulnerable feelings, sadness, pain, suffering, grief, loneliness, anger, resentment, the things that don't work for us, and our joy and our enthusiasm about life. And so when we regularly make this a pattern in our life to open up rather than close, and to express rather than repress, those are the behaviors and the patterns with many, 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 many repetitions that start to give rise to a deeply bonded relationship. To do it in a respectful way, to create agreement that the partner wants to do this with you, that is one of the earmarks of the habits of successful couples, that they're very respectful. They don't try to push things on other people or demand or command. They appeal to their partner's enlightened self-interest. You're going to be happier. I'm going to be happier. Our relationship's going to be happier if we take on this agreement that we're going to practice the new habit of being more open with each other rather than repressing to express. And it's one of the things that you can get very immediate gratification from, that lift, by being more authentic and real. And I don't believe that daily practice is too much. If we take time to make our relationship a priority, and this is a good habit to get into. It can be first thing in the morning before we start our busy days. It could be the end of the day that we check in about how our day went. It could be meeting for lunch. It could be when we go walking the dogs, but that we have a regular practice. This is a great habit to check inside and then report out and check in with our partner. When I work with couples, I find that the ones that thrive are the ones that are doing this mindfulness practice on a regular basis. and they're aware of what they're feeling and what they're needing, and they're sharing that with their partner. Doesn't guarantee that our needs are going to get met, but it stacks the deck for success and encourages the possibility that they will be able to meet some of our needs, not of all of our needs. We need to have some of our needs met by ourselves and with other relationships that we have. But when we live with somebody and we have a committed partnership with them, part of the deal that we make with them is that we want to know what it is they're needing to thrive. We want them to know what we need to thrive, and we're going to do our best to practice being generous of spirit. And this is another habit that highly successful couples have. They're generous. They give their time. They give their attention. They give their listening. It's been all over the media for decades about the earmark of a great relationship is that they have terrific communication skills. And usually when people are thinking about good communication skills, they're talking about being articulate, about expressing what it is that we feel and we need, our ideas. But what doesn't get enough attention that I think really needs a lot of attention is our listening skills, committed listening, listening with our pores open, with our eyes, with our ears, with watching body language and facial expression, that we want to be a committed listener. That is how we are going to receive most of the information that we get about what's going on with our partner. And when we have that generosity of spirit to pay close attention to them, that's a habit that will give rise to that safety and security that we're all longing for. Now, the couples who are using the habit of creating safety and security, a high level of trust, predictability, that they can count on each other, don't get root bound with that, because they know that balance is one of the characteristics of great relationship. So they have to have challenge too. So too much root isn't good. That will close the relationship off and contain it too much. Too many wings is too flighty. We need the security. But both of those things in balance with each other is really helpful. To have habits of balance, work and play. To have balance of devotion to children and devotion to self. Devotion to children, devotion to the romantic partnership. The balance is a habit of happy couples. The happiest couples are terrific negotiators. They know what they need, and they're not bashful about speaking about what they need. Again, in a respectful way, not in a demanding, commanding way, an inviting way. So if you need more time to yourself to rest and relax, and you're introverted, you need more quiet time, to negotiate for your needs. If you need more emotional intimacy, to negotiate for your needs. Your partner may not need as much as you do, but you ask for what you want. And if they're wise, they will stretch into your world and make it a regular pattern to let go, to let the introverts have the quiet time they need, or to connect more and have the extroverts have more emotional intimacy and dialogue and communication and exchange. There's usually one in the pair that is more ambitious, let's say, of creating a great relationship filled with habits that are going to lift the relationship up into the higher zones of well-being. More responsibility lays with that partner because they've got more fire in the belly and more desire for it. So to be a good teacher and to be a good leader, you need to appeal to your partner about why this would benefit them, why it would benefit you, and why it would benefit the both of you. And then negotiate for your needs. If you need more affection, this is one of the habits of the happiest couples. They exchange love and affection with touch, with words of affirmation. I love you, with details. When my husband says, I love you, I say, give me the details. I want to know specifically what he's enjoying about me. Sometimes little gifts are big gifts, not just on Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthdays, and wedding anniversaries, but a surprise gift for no good reason, just because it's May. I want to give you a little something. And the way we spend our quality time can also be a gift. If our partner is interested in classical music or poetry, maybe classical music or poetry doesn't really light up our life. But if it does theirs, through our generosity of spirit, we stretch into their world and we give them love in the way they want it. We don't just assume that the way we want to have love shown is the way they want to have love shown. We're in the habit of paying attention and really deeply listening to the way they want love shown and dose them with it on a regular basis. Conflict management skills, listening, having the courage to speak up when things aren't working, to not sweep anything under the rug, to not be in denial, to be able to tell the truth about when you broke that agreement about our date, it really hurt and upset and disappointed me. Sometimes people are not as brave and courageous as they need to be a good partner, that it isn't all sweet, it isn't all kind, it isn't all the strawberry sweet slush. Sometimes it's being genuine and authentic. And these are habits that we can, over time, cultivate, of being brave and courageous enough to listen to each other, even if there's some painful truths being spoken, and to refine the way that we bring our discontent to our partner on both sides so we could tell the truth of our experience without blame and judgment. So if we're sharing from our inner experience, that's about our feelings and needs. If we're sharing from our mind, that is often full of opinions, which are often judgmental and can really hurt the other person. My husband and I are also working on a book called The End to Arguing, and it's going to have a lot of tips about how to have an interchange about differences, which really is enlivening to the relationship, that you can hear, understand, and appreciate each other's point of view. This requires some work on our part to feel worthy, to feel deserving of having a great relationship, and also to smooth out some of those rough habits that we may have learned over time that can cause harm to the other person, and that we can find ways to tee up our remarks and say, I'm saying this because I love you so much and I want us to have the best possible relationship, but there is something that is not working for me. And to be able to talk about all the subjects, that everything is fair game. There are no-fly zones. There are no taboo subjects, even the toughest ones: money, sexuality, how power of decision making, who does household tasks, in-laws, how we rear the children. There's often one that's more laissez-faire and lenient, and the other one that wants to be a little bit more strict with limits and consequences. All couples have differences. The happiest, most successful couples have differences, but the ones that have instituted patterns over time of handling their differences with grace and style are the ones who are doing the best. When there are breakdowns in a relationship, we will need to have good repair skills. Habits of repairing are taking responsibility for our own part in the breakdown. When we have participated in a way that isn't so skillful, that the old habits of interrupting or raising our voice or walking away from the challenge or using humor to distract or whatever methods of manipulation, bad habits we've learned, we take responsibility for that. Now, that doesn't mean that we're at fault for the argument that we just had. We're just taking our part. We're not presenting as being a victim. That will ruin a perfectly fine relationship that has a lot of potential if we go to the victim stance of you're doing it to me, you're making me angry, you're frustrating me. If we can see that there's big challenge in relationship about handling differences, and we both need to acquire habits of patience, good listening, tolerance for the differences, acceptance, courage. These are all habits that give rise to great relationships, but they're not just born right in us. We don't come into adulthood knowing how to do this well. We cultivate it over time. We learn as we go. I'm very fond of Malcolm Gladwell's book, Outliers. He talks about the most successful musicians, the people who are successful in business, the people who are successful athletically, even successful criminals. They all have things in common. They log the 10,000 hours to get good at whatever they need to do. He uses the Beatles as an example. They were working in Germany when they were an unknown group in the beginning of their careers, and they logged more hours performing on stage, presenting all kinds of music. They were creative and versatile and risky, and they logged more hours in their early career that some musicians do in their whole lifetime. They logged their 10,000 hours and got proficient at their art and craft. And it's one of the reasons that they were such a huge success. A lot of people have unique talents, innate talents, plenty of potential, but they don't log the 10,000 hours. This is something I run into all the time with couples, that they don't comprehend that there's effort involved, that you have to bring your good work ethic that you may be using in your career, that you bring that to your relationship, developing your relationship. Just because we love each other doesn't mean it's going to flow naturally. And I believe that it's one of the greatest gifts that we give our kids is a model of a harmonious, cooperative, and alive relationship. So I talked about affection, and I talked about hugging and kissing and touching and caressing. And those are really enlivening, and to do it on a regular basis, a habituated pattern, but also making our sexual connection, the gift from Mother Nature, really work for us. Because if that is a habituated pattern, that we're adventurous and explore in that area, you can keep it alive over the decades, and the sexual spark, the desire, and the responsiveness can stay alive well past the infatuation stage. And even as we age, we have interviewed many couples, 70s, 80s, and they still have plenty of juice in their sexual and sensual relationship. And it behooves us to keep that alive and to know what lights each other up and turn each other on, and be generous of spirit in that area. It's pretty edgy for a lot of people, but if we are practicing in other areas of our relationship to reveal rather than conceal, this will become easier to negotiate for our needs in that area. I would like to speak to you about living in gratitude and cultivating the habit of counting our blessings. My husband and I teach together at Esalen and Kripalu in Massachusetts in the Berkshire Mountains and other places. And we teach courses in relationship, love, sex, and intimacy, and secrets of great relationships. But we also teach some courses in happiness. One of them is called Thriving, and the other one is called The Art of Joyful Living. And so we had to do a survey of the literature to find out what the people who are at the top of the field are saying. And in the positive psychology movement, Martin Seligman and others all agree that one of the places where we get the biggest bang for our buck is in our closest relationships. That would be marriage, relationships with our children, parents, siblings, closest friends. That's where you are going to get the biggest joy jolt. I love that phrase, joy jolt, the biggest lift in what's going to bring well-being and what's going to bring satisfaction to our life. And another thing that is going to give us the biggest boost in our happiness is to count our blessings and to live in gratitude. And they encourage having a journal where you maybe even write every day something that you're thankful for that day. I think it's beautiful to do it in a written form and also to speak it aloud to people in our life. And if we have a live-in partner, somebody that we're in committed partnership with, that we say, thank you for emptying the dishwasher. Thank you for the beautiful meal that you created. Thank you for lingering in bed with me this morning so we could talk about what we were planning today. Thank you for holding me when I was crying last night about my disappointment that my sister didn't call me back. These are ways. These are habits. These are the conditioned patterns that give rise to a really beautiful and fulfilled relationship in life. It is not being in denial about the things that don't work. They need to be honored too. These are the dark shadow parts of our life, but the golden shadow part of our life is right there, just a thought away. And when we take the time to put the accent on what is working in our relationship and what is working in our life and cultivate positivity rather than negativity, to cultivate optimism rather than pessimism, those are good habits to be able to establish. Sometimes people are not getting all the love that they need to thrive. And we need to become gracious receivers, to have openness to receiving the love and attention and care and consideration that's coming towards us. They may be pouring things on us that we're not really accepting. And so becoming a gracious receiver is also a habit that is useful to cultivate. So I just want to say a little bit about creativity. When we are in a longer term partnership, now we're going on more than 5 decades now, your relationship is going to grow if you each are growing, which is happening all the time, just the natural maturation and things that we learn, that we need to be open to remodeling and revising and refurbishing our relationship. So making a commitment to owning the part of ourselves that is the creative artist and that is up to it, that is up to the redesign, that is up to the remodel. So I want to just say one more thing, and then I want to open it up to questions because I want to hear what's on your mind. And questions are a good habit to establish in relationships. But when I have worked with couples much later, after a separation and divorce, sometimes with maturity and life experience, they've said, I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I got a mismatch for my partner. What I realize now is that that person, and so did I, had good potential, but we had bad habits. I didn't realize that I needed to get rid of the bad habits and grow some better habits rather than get rid of that partner. So I would like to save you some trouble and aggravation to consider the possibility that you might be partnered with somebody, or if you're getting ready to get partnered, you might be partnered with somebody who has good raw materials, but take ownership of how big a challenge in life, one of the biggest ones we take on, how big a challenge it is to grow a successful relationship. And to do that, we have to examine the habits that we have, tell the truth. If we have some that are bad habits for us, that are unskillful, that aren't working for us, and be creative enough to design the habits that will work for us and that will give rise to a great relationship. And no kidding, roll up our sleeves, get to work, put an effort towards it, make it a priority in our life, and get on task. So show me what it is that you're interested in knowing, and I will respond to your questions and address your concerns. What kind of warning signs I should look out for in order to have a healthy relationship? Great question. You want to look for somebody who's showing indications that they already prize commitment. Because if they're committed to keeping the relationships with their friends in good shape, if they're committed to keeping their relationships with their friends and family and colleagues at work, relationships with their boss, people they supervise, you see signs that they've already got the habit of commitment under their belt. But you want to interview them. You want to vet them. You want to see what their idea is, see what their vision is. Do they want committed partnership in their life? Is it a goal in their life to create happy family? Do they have a growth orientation? Is there an impulse, and do they have some fire in the belly that they want to use the relationship and everything that it throws up to be grist for the mill to create a great life and a great partnership? And if those are in place, you will be able to see whether the people have some ambition to work with you. I also think that it's important to look and see if they're kind and tender-hearted, if they're open to influence. This is especially important to see if the males are open to influence. In most cultures around the world, the men have more privilege. They grow up in privilege, and they sometimes come into adulthood with entitlement that they're supposed to have relationship be more their way rather than collaborating and taking influence from the females. And so you want to see whether you have an old patriarch there or somebody who's more on the progressive end who really wants to share power with you, because that's a powerful habit and a powerful commitment to make with each other, that you want both people's needs to be a high priority, that one person's needs can't be a higher priority of the other if you want to go to the highest level that relationship could be. You don't want to make your own needs more important than the other person, but you don't want to make the other person's needs more important than yours. You want to create that kind of balance and egalitarianism, and that's a winning combination. More questions. I feel like my husband wants sex as he thinks that sex is love. And I am honest and say I understand that there's my feelings too, but he does not like that. All right, sexuality is one of the really vulnerable areas. And some people have a higher drive just in their body. They are higher testosterone, so that they're higher drive. They're often matched up with a lower T, a lower testosterone, who can do without as much sex quite happily. It's lessons in patience for the high drive person, and it's lessons in generosity of spirit for the lower drive person to be able to meet somewhere in the middle. And it's not always women, by the way, but more often it's women, they want love shown with non-sexual touch, with cuddling and hugging. And I've known a lot of men who really like non-sexual touch and want hugs more than the women do. But this is a place where we negotiate for our needs. It is extremely important to not make each other wrong, to not make the low desire person cold or unloving, not to make the higher desire person some kind of a pervert or animal. It's just difference, and to respect the differences in every area of our life, but especially the sexual differences. And if the person who asked the question wants more foreplay, wants episodes of non-sexual cuddling and touching with no sex on the agenda that particular time, ask for what you want. Appeal to your partner's self-interest, that this would make you so happy if you could have some emotional interchange that was of an intimate nature, that would enhance your connection, that you would have some affection and touch showed that was not sexual, that would enhance your connection. And it'll probably put you in a better mood to be generous of spirit, to do the kind of sex play that they really like, to have more quickies or whatever it is that they're into, that may not be as fulfilling for you, but if you're getting your needs met, whatever they may be, that's likely to put you in a place where you're more generous to stretch into their world, to meet their needs. I'm loving the juicy questions. Bring them on. Listening to your session, I just realized that me and my partner's arguments a lot recently have been leading to our sour conclusions all the time. How can we avert this? You see, it's not just the content of what we're dealing with, our differences. It's how we're dealing with it. If we're insistent on having our way, that leads to sourness. It spills into all areas of our life. Lack of cooperation with the way we raise our kids. When we're not dealing with our differences so that we come to an understanding and a sweet place where we feel complete, that we understand each other, not necessarily agree, that can find that it's sour, and it starts to make, I don't feel like I want to make love with you. Do you know that we feel protected? We don't feel safe to really open up. We open up our heart, open up our body, open up our mind about the things that we're thinking. So it is so essential to be able to find agreements and establish them as habits with our partner that will give rise to, I would just like to go on the record and tell you about what I feel and what I need and what would work for me. And I want you to go on the record with me. And I want you to tell me what's important to you, about your life goals, the way we run our day, just the trivia of our day, what time we get up, whether we sleep together in the same bed in the same room, whether we sit down to meals together, what the kind of meals that we eat, the kind of food that we purchase and prepare. All of these little pieces of trivia are very important part of what makes up a day. And to be able to negotiate about how to do that, do you know, I live with a husband who doesn't eat any meat. I like meat, so I have to prepare 2 meals, and he sometimes prepares food too. But because there's so many areas of our relationship that really work and that I feel so soul nourished in a deep way, it doesn't annoy me that I need to make his meatless dish when mine sometimes has some meat in it. So this spirit of goodwill can be established with the habits of generosity. And it is so important to have the climate of our relationship be clean, pure, cooperative, collaborative, where both people trust, I'm going to be respected and my needs are going to be taken into consideration too. So we want to keep the incompletions from mounting up because they will sour a relationship. The incompletions are the unfinished business about the things that did not get adequately addressed. And let me just say, there is no statute of limitations on incompletions. Even if it was last year or 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 10 years ago, if it's still bothering us, it's not too late to bring it up. That's a myth. And it is a good agreement to make with our partner that we want to be in the habit of not withholding things that are bothering us, and that we're committed to bringing it up in a respectful way so that we can learn and understand how to get along with each other and have a climate that is sweet in our relationship. We have more time. We could take one more if there's anybody with a burning question out there that wants to risk putting it out here. And if there, okay, one more question. Thank you for answering my previous question, but I'd like to ask another. Yes, how to make a relationship long lasting? What is the secret to that? Thank you very much for the question. To make the relationship long lasting, we want to commit ourselves in every possible way to becoming the most loving human being that we can be. Self-loving and generous of spirit to show love to our partner and others. This is my answer to what's the secret of life. The secret of life for me is to become a loving human being. So I offer that to you. It is the umbrella, the overarching goal that will lead us into the habits that give rise to an exemplary life, a fulfilling life, a soul-saturated life. That if we find ways to forgive ourselves for mistakes that we've made when we were less evolved, when we were less mature, when we were less loving, and that we caused harm to other people, when we can be forgiving, when we can make amends to the people that we've harmed, when we can make it up to them, we can do do-overs, we can show them that we have learned. That's powerful. When we become people with higher self-esteem, we've done our growth work. We've learned how to negotiate for our needs. We don't take advantage of other people. We don't exploit other people. that we feel we have a lot to give. We own how creative we are. We own how abundant we are. We own how emotionally intelligent we are, that we have untapped potential and we want to keep utilizing more of it. We're committed to being in service in our life to the people around us and gracious receivers to receive what they offer to us. We have a foundation of security in our relationship that can risk trying new things, risk adventure, risk creative remodeling. So we may go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 incarnations over time within the same relationship, but we're staying in communication and collaboration with each other all along. And that will create the kind of relationship that we wouldn't want to leave, nor would our partner want to leave. It's the best game in town. It's so satisfying and so fulfilling when two people are working together to co-create something that wonderful, that nutritious, that we feel full and we have so much to contribute to our family and community. We wouldn't want to leave, nor would they. So thank you very much for the question. We're wrapping up now, and I want to let you know that our website, Bloomwork, not Bloomworks, that'll take you to a flower nursery. Bloomwork, singular, BLOOMWORK, has a free store. When you go to the free store, you'll find that we have 3 free ebooks. One's on sexuality, one is on the end to arguing, and the third one is the 10 most important things that my husband and I have learned since we got married. There are 10 chapters in each one of them, and they're valuable. So get on our email list, and so you can get the free ebooks, and you'll get a booster shot of inspiration every month. We don't blitz people with too much information on a regular basis, but we do give them a valuable piece to read that will give you lift and grist for the mill for conversations for the people in your life who also want to have great relationships. For the people out there who are readers, we have recommended reading lists on a number of topics. Great relationships is one of the topics that we have listed the books that we consider to be the most valuable. I know people's time is precious. Our 4 books are on the recommended reading list. 101 Things I Wish I Knew When I Got Married, Simple Lessons to Make Love Last, is the big seller. We've sold over 100,000 copies, and it's the basic foundational piece, and I think you'll find it very valuable. Secrets of Great Marriages came next. Then Happily Ever After and 39 Other Myths About Love was the third one. And the fourth one that we published is a memoir about a relationship breakdown that my husband and I had when he was a workaholic and he was away from the family when the children were small, and we were gridlocked and fighting terribly, and how we survived that dark time. So it's a gory story with a lot of details about all the bad habits that we had, but we're hungry learners, so we paid attention to what would help, and we finally did have that breakdown become a breakthrough rather than a breakup. But that was a pretty close call, all but call the divorce lawyer. We were just hanging by threads. So our books, our newsletter, our free ebooks, and the recommended reading, they're all on our site. And whenever we're teaching a workshop, I wish some of you would come and attend. You will find them on our website, and we will also announce it when we put a newsletter out. I am very happy to be able to be with you today. I hope that you find practical value about creating good, healthy, wholesome habits. I hope you've been inspired and you've got some fuel in your tank to get busy, because the payoffs are fabulous.